Hello, folks. This is your host, Tammy Tuckey, and you are now listening to the Tiara Talk Show. We bring you rare interviews with the makers of Disney magic. Whether they be singers, actors, Imagineers, animators, they have all made their mark on the Disney name. Be sure to check out the show notes, other episodes, contests, our social media pages from Facebook to Twitter, and more on our official website at www.thetiaratalkshow.com. Are you looking to plan and book an upcoming Disney vacation? Contact the Tiara Talk Show's official travel agent, James from Destinations in Florida, by visiting destinationsinflorida.com/tiara for a free quote. The link is also included in the show notes on our website. All guest opinions are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the opinions of the Tiara Talk Show or the host. The Tiara Talk Show is not associated with the Disney Company. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. And from all of us here at the Tiara Talk Show, have a hoop-de-doo day. I'm excited to welcome this week's Tiara Talk Show guests, Disney animators Tom and Tony Bancroft. Welcome to the show, you two.
Hey, Tammy. How you doing?
Thanks for having us, Tammy. We're glad to be here. This is Tony.
I'm already having fun. This is Tom.
And you guys are the first official twins on the show.
Wow.
About time. What were we waiting for?
You're now on our Hall of Fame for that reason, and also for being amazing animators. Let's talk about how you both started getting into the animation industry, because both of you are twins and both of you like to animate, and you do it so beautifully and so well. So we'll start with Tom.
I think our story is going to be pretty similar, but because we're twins. But yeah,
we say ditto.
Yeah, there you go. Get ready, Tony. We got into it because we were both really into drawing very early, but especially comic strips and the Peanuts with Charles Schulz. That comic strip was a big influence on us at a young age because we were growing up in the early mid-'70s, and that strip, the Peanuts, and Garfield, and comic strips in general were really big at the time. And so I think that was our first exposure to cartooning. And so we both wanted to be comic strip artists early on. And then that kind of evolved in junior college when we were both doing high school newspaper comic strips. And then in junior college, we were doing separate ones. And then we met a friend of ours, Eric Stefani, and he kind of all of a sudden went, "Hey, I'm doing this clay animated little short film, just out of my house with a Super 8 camera." And the light went on for both of us that, wait a second, you don't have to have a huge studio, millions of dollars to make, your own animation. At least here's one way to do it that was accessible. And so it just never dawned on us that was even possible, because this was before the behind-the-scenes kind of videos you would see on like Beauty and the Beast and some of those things later on, because this was before all that. This is before, video even.
Video, yeah.
Yeah. Tony, want to take it from there?
Yeah, so then we started making movies, a little clay animated thing with this guy, Eric, whose sister happens to be Gwen Stefani, and he started No Doubt, the band. Boom, laid that out there for you. So Tom and I grew up in the OC and went to college there with Eric, and he got us into animation. And from there, we found out about CalArts, which is California Institute of the Arts, big college for animation, Disney-sponsored college in Valencia, California. And went there, learned from some of the best. I mean, like Chris Buck and Mike Giamo and Joe Ramp. For those that know those names, they're all very famous, popular people at Disney. Chris, as a matter of fact, just co-directed Frozen, so we're proud of our teacher and mentor for that. And Tom and I got hired straight from there into an internship that Disney was having at the time. They were hiring specifically for a 9-week internship to hire for the Disney MGM Studios. That's what it was called when we first started there. And we were employees like 9 and 10 of the Disney MGM Studios in Orlando, Florida, and started on Roller Coaster Rabbit films, and then went from there into the features, Rescuers Down Under being the first one that I think we both worked on, and then Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and Lion King, all the ones that you grew up with as a small young girl.
Absolutely. And I remember the Fishbowl. Who does not remember the Fishbowl at
that's
Disney's MGM
right.
Studios? I remember going through that, the Walter Cronkite, Robin Williams, Back to Neverland, then getting to see you guys work. That was amazing, and that's actually something was on my list. I'll bring it up now because I really miss that aspect of the animation pavilion. I spent a really good majority of my time when I was at the studios last June just roaming around and being like, wow, what used to be here, what was made here. Let's talk about getting up in the morning and going to a Disney theme park and being able to work and see people look over your shoulder all the time, and then maybe take a lunch break and go over to Star Wars Land and take a Star Tours ride. That just sounds like a perfect job in my mind.
And it was, and we could talk the rest of the show about the days of Florida and working at the studio there and in a theme park of all places. Tony left within the first year, and went back to the Disney studio in Burbank. So most of my career with Disney was in Florida. I was there for about 10 or 11 years. But I can tell you, we loved it. I mean, that first year, especially when we were both there, was so exciting because we were just excited to be right out of school. We were about 20, 21 years old.
Yeah, we were probably 21. We would go. They had a little golf cart. This is just a little story. They had a little golf cart that Feature Animation can use for running errands around the back lot. Tom and I would we made in good with all the top ranking people at Disney Florida. So we would borrow that, and maybe 2 or 3 of us would just go off on the lunch hour and go. And at the time they were filming the Mickey Mouse Club, the new Mickey Mouse Club. And we'd see all these little kids doing the same thing. They would have, here we were 21, but here they were probably I don't know, in their teens or 15 or early younger. Teens. Yeah, and they're buzzing by us and being all crazy and stuff. And we're like, you watch it, you kids, you're going to get hurt. Little did we know that these were going to be all famous people. And I ended up working with Christina Aguilar later on as she did music for Mulan. So, I even asked her about that if she remembered those times. It was pretty funny.
We were still working on the same movies even when Tony moved back in, what was it, 90, probably 91, I'm guessing? Yeah, you moved back?
Around there, yeah.
And then from that point on, Florida was still working on the Disney features, but we were a small studio. So we had maybe, I don't know, I think maybe even at our top before we expanded from Mulan later, we had maybe 8 animators, 7 or 8. Well, in California, they had 50 or something like that, 30 to 50.
30, 35. Yeah, and so we were the core team in Burbank working on, Rescuers Down Under, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and then Tom and the unit out in Florida would just take chunks of each of the films as the kind of the B team. Not that they were B in quality, certainly, but they were kind of the help out group because these features were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. When I came on to Mulan, it was originally in California doing development of the story and that sort of thing, working on the script. We were storyboarding out there in LA, while the team in Florida was gearing up to be the production unit. And then I went back to Florida to direct the film, work with Tom and the whole crew in Florida, and we produced the feature out there over another year and a half or so. So I was started in Florida, went to California for about 6 years, went back to Florida, now is everybody's boss. Thank you.
Check, please.
Now, Tony, you got to work on The Emperor's New Groove, which was also came out. What was your take on working on Kronk?
Oh my gosh, it came at the best possible time in my career too, because I had just finished up Mulan, directing on that. Mulan was really like a 4-year journey for me, really 3.5, I guess, from the point I got onto it until the end, and a real roller coaster at that. And there was times where, the Disney system of making animated films is very collaborative, which is great. But then the negative side to that, and there is always a negative side to everything, but the negative side is that you're stuck in meetings all the time, and it's just one after another, and this grueling kind of, are we making a film or are we making a bakery? You don't really know. At some point, it's like the lines kind of blur, and what are we talking about again? Oh, yeah, we're making a fun cartoon. And after a while, though, I just craved being at the animation desk. The animator in me just wanted to sit down and draw. So after Mulan was done, I was in development for about 6 months, trying out new ideas and pitching them. But it was kind of a weird, quirky time where the studio was trying to kind of redirect and find what it wanted to do. And I kind of raised my hand up and said, you know what, I volunteer to go back in animation for a while because I would love to do that. And at the time, Tom Schumacher, who was then the vice president of development, said, okay, well, we got these 2 films if you want. I mean, Treasure Planet's over here, and you could do, I always did comedy characters, you know, there was Pumba and Lion King, and Iago and Aladdin and Cogsworth and Beauty and the Beast. So they said, well, there's this funny morph character over here on Treasure Planet, or you can go over here to Emperor's New Groove. And they had gone through all this story restructuring and stuff, but what had come out of it was this character Kronk. And it was still early enough on both of them, Treasure Planet being a little bit more ahead, that I could kind of clearly see what the characters were about and the animatics, the story reels. And Morph was interesting because it was this, from an animation perspective, a lot of fun. He's always morphing and changing into things, a lot of, shapes, variety and stuff like that. And there could be comedy in a physical way. He doesn't talk, but a lot of physical comedy. I thought that could be fun and it could expand into something. But when I heard the voice of Patrick Warburton for Kronk,
I said, what did it sound like?
He talks a little bit like this. He's got a low voice, and he says, "Oh, my spinach puffs."
I knew you wanted to do that. I was just
that wasn't my best. I'm a little rusty on my Patrick.
No,
but
I've heard
but thank you. But when I heard the voice, I just said, "Oh man, I totally got to do that character." And that was before I really knew much about the film. But I just fell in love with that film. It was fun. It was lighthearted. We had very little time because they had spent so much time going in one direction with a different director, with Sting involved and doing songs, and then they turned it all around and went in this funny kind of Disney/Warner Brothers kind of take on it, and brought in Kronk and a couple other characters that were more lampoonish and silly, and but I loved it. It was everything that an animator loves about cartoons. It's that fun, physical, silly kind of animation that was just so fun, especially after coming off of Mulan, just to get my head around a fun, cartoony character. I love spinach puffs. Awesome experience.
Well, you guys remind me of Rutt and Tuke from Brother Bear. And I know, Tom, you worked on these characters. I love Brother Bear. We got to mention Brother Bear.
Yeah.
Now, was this inspiration from...
Well, no, I'd like to say it was, but it's not. I mean, the voice actors, who now I can't remember, Rick Moranis and they were 2 Canadian comedians that had a routine that they did, and it was based off that routine. And they had even done a movie, Strange Brew, where they did those characters. I came onto that film late. I had left Disney sometime after John Henry and Mulan, and I'd worked a little bit on Tarzan too. Ended up going back to Disney right as they were in the middle of Brother Bear, and they needed a lot of help to get it done. And so, again, that was another film I just worked on a little bit. I worked on it more than Atlantis, but I got put on the Rutt and Tuke because I was kind of known as, I'd left, I'd done Mushu. Unlike Tony, I've done a little bit of dramatic characters, like I did Pocahontas and I did young Simba, and then I also have done funny characters like Mushu.
Are you calling me limited? Are you saying I'm limited in my career?
It's typecast. That's what you are.
I'm the funny guy.
So I got on Rutt and Tuke, which actually is kind of in between. Drawing-wise, they were tough. I mean, that was it was probably
They're
second.
Big characters.
Second to Pocahontas. As far as like a little bit more realistic drawing, the antlers were insane. But anyway, it was fun. The guys, Bruce Johnson and Tony Stanley, were the 2 supervising animators of both those characters. And it was a good time just to come back and animate for a while.
Do you both have a favorite celebrity interaction experience from working on a project?
I do. I'm going to jump in, Tony.
Do it. Was it Michael Jackson?
It was Michael Jackson. I got to say
No way.
Because when we were at the Disney MGM Studios, now it's called the Hollywood Studios, and we had that little animation tour there, the first, 5 years, for whatever reason, it seemed like we were the hot ticket for celebrities. They would come and they'd want to see the animation tour, and better than that, they wanted to go down in the tour and actually meet the animators. Because also that was around the time Lion King was coming out and Little Mermaid had just come out. So Disney animation was hot. We had like Princess Diana come through, And Michael Jackson came through. Robin Williams came through. We had pretty much everybody.
James Earl Jones. I mean, yeah,
James
everybody.
So, yeah, anyway, the really cool one was Michael Jackson. He came through and walked actually right by our desks and stuff and stopped by my desk and talked to me for a little bit. And I remember saying, you should do a voice. And then he talked about, he had done Captain EO. And I said, I like that. But just, we can make it an animated character. Oh, and he loved it.
Well, I mean, one of my most memorable experiences hanging out with voice actors and stuff was probably on The Lion King. A group of us, 3 animators, went down to New York. The voice of Timon and Pumbaa, Ernie Zabella, and Nathan Lane were in a Broadway revival of Guys and Dolls in New York. And Ernie was so awesome. He took us backstage. And at the time, Al Hirschfeld was still alive, the caricature artist that was doing all the New York Times caricatures. And he had just done a lithograph print of The Lion King. Of Guys and Dolls. And I bought that print. And Ernie was so kind. He brought us backstage right after the performance was done, got the whole cast to sign my lithograph that I had by Al Hirschfeld, which I still have hanging in my house to this day. And afterwards, we went and hung out with him and Nathan Lane and a bunch of the performers from the show and had dinner and then went to his apartment and that was a lot of fun.
Dancing.
And Hakuna Matata. He's no worries.
Hey, that's my scene.
I went over it though.
Here's a little trivia. Yeah. I know you did. Shut up. Here's a little trivia. I the only scene in Lion King that I animated Pumbaa was that one where he goes, Hakuna Matata. It means no worries.
You guys are so much fun, and you have your own podcast. I want to mention it, the Bancroft Brothers Animation Podcast, which you can find on iTunes. I'm going to link it below in our show notes. What was the inspiration to start this podcast?
Let's see. Well, we already had a Facebook page, Bancroft Brothers Facebook page, and somebody said, we were coming up to, 3,000 or 4,000 followers on that. We wanted to do something to celebrate, and somebody in the comments said, well, why don't you do a podcast? And I called Tony and I said, you know what? We should do a podcast because we are already we get on the phone. We don't talk about our families. We talk about animation,
Yeah, we love talking about animation all the time. Disney and other places, just animation in general.
So we just thought, well, why don't we just start recording that basically and make it a podcast and we'll bring in friends from the Disney days and do interviews and newer people too.
We have interviewed people like Don Hahn and Rob Minkoff and the list is huge. We've actually done 18 to 19 episodes now, and visual development artists, character designers, animators, producers, directors, you name it. We've kind of touched the gamut. Always from our feature animation background. So we do skew a little bit more towards. It really skews more towards, we have a lot of followers, Tom and I, that are young students that want to be animators. They're animator wannabes. They're all in school right now and trying to figure out, how do I break in? How do I get that job and opportunity? So a lot of the people we interview and stuff will be from that, what was it like when you were just starting out? So to give that future generation that are our fans that kind of influence into hearing professionals talk about how would they break in or how did they break in, and little pointers and tips for the future.
Now I have 3 Disney questions I always ask my guests. They're called the Fab 3. So we'll start with the Donald one. The Donald one is, what Disney film would you always like to watch over and over again?
Oh, man. I'll jump in here and just say I'm a huge fan of Lady and the Tramp. And I don't get tired of that because I think the 9 Old Men, the masters of animation, really poured their heart and soul into anthropomorphizing so successfully dogs into having humanistic attributes, and I love that movie. I love it for that reason.
I might have to go with the other dog one, 101 Dalmatians. I mean, to me, that story and the characters, the voices, everything about it, the animation, even the style of it is pretty darn perfect.
And our goofy question, what Disney character do you think would be your best friend if you met them in person?
I'm going to say Baloo the bear, because he seems like a good egg, a good guy to hang out with, easygoing. I think Baloo and I could, hang out, get some coffee.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Aladdin. I don't know. He just pops into my head, and he's a good guy.
And our Mickey question, if I asked you to name any Disney song at this very moment, what immediately comes to mind?
Well, probably because Tom just said Aladdin. I'm thinking of I can show you the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was from Aladdin. Did I get that right? Okay.
Yes.
Was that the Jasmine part? Close.
That was the Aladdin.
Oh, okay.
All right. What about you, Tom? You got to sing
It's
your
funny
answer
because
now.
it was just the opposite. When you said Jungle Book, I thought of Bare Necessities. So that
You got to sing a little bit. Sing it. You got to sing it in.
Bare necessities, a simple bare necessity.
Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. And I want to open this opportunity for you guys to talk to the audience and let them know what upcoming projects you guys are working on and where to find you on Facebook.
Ooh, cool. Can I jump in? This is Tony. Tammy, you're going to love this because I'm actually directing a CG animated feature right now, a smaller independent one, but having a ball on it. Both Tom and I left Disney over 10, 15 years ago, depending on who you're talking to, and have been independent ever since. I'm directing a film called Animal Crackers right now, and I say you're going to love this because I'm working with a lot of the Disney voices that I did before. We actually hired back Patrick Warburton is doing a voice.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's on. Gilbert Gottfried is doing a voice in it, and I got Harvey Fierstein, who I worked with on Mulan, and we got... oh gosh, That's So Raven. Raven Simone is doing a voice in it. And then we also have Danny DeVito, who's also another Disney guy.
Oh my gosh, this is a great cast.
Sir Ian McKellen does a voice.
What Disney character was he? Meg?
No, he's not. But, they could find that. If the audience wants to know more about that upcoming film, it's called Animal Crackers. There's a Facebook page that has clips and character designs. You can see some of the actors too at Facebook. Go on Facebook and look up The Animal Crackers Movie. And as for Tom and I have a very successful daily Facebook page that people can reach us at if they want to ask questions or just come see what we're up to these days, because we try and keep it current with updating what we're doing. And that's on Facebook, called the Bancroft Brothers.
And I'm this is Tom now. I'm all over the place. I'm on Instagrams and Twitter as Tom Bancroft 1. So follow me there. Of course, Facebook and Tumblr and others. But I do a lot of drawing. Unlike Tony, I still draw. And so I draw stuff and post it, and a lot of, comic geek stuff and things like that. The project I'm doing right now for the last few years, I've been the head of character design for a Christian show for CBN, and that is called Superbook. And so that was a show that I helped develop and directed the pilot for. And so I've been doing character design on that for about 3 or 4 years. We're already in our 4th season of episodes. So that can be, you can find it at cbn.com. And then I also do a webcomic, and it's autobiographical about my family. I have 4 girls and a wife, so it's kind of a guy living in the world of women, and it's called Outnumbered. and you can find that up. And I post a new one every Monday, and it's outnumberedcomic.com.
Tom and I have actually written books too. So besides podcasts and Facebook pages and our day jobs, we've also written books that are instructional books on animation. I have one called Directing for Animation out with Focal Press, and Tom has 2 out on character design.
Creating characters with personality, and that's used at art schools all around the world. And then Character Mentor is my 2nd one.
Again, I want to thank you both, Tom and Tony, for coming on the show. I'm very excited for your upcoming projects. It was so much fun to talk with both of you.
Well, thank you, Tammy. It was a good time.
Yeah, we had a good time. Thanks for having us on the Tiara Show. We had our tiaras on the whole time, too. So nobody saw, but we did.
And your magical wands, too.
I'm king, he's queen.
Be swift as a coursing river, with all the force of a great typhoon, with all the strength of a raging fire, mysterious as the dark side of the moon. Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow.